What's up everyone, I'm CallumOnToast, and in today's video I'm going to be showcasing Skrelp in the Go Battle League, but no, this is not an Element Cup video where this Pokemon is top meta. This is actually in the Open Great League, and yes, that means this is a level 50, 98% shiny Skrelp. Now, other than these three Pokemon getting buffs this season, can anyone guess what the theme of this team is? I'm actually not going to tell you right now, but I will be revealing the answer partway through the video, so make sure you stick around for that. But anyways, before we get into the question of the day, I want to say thank you for all the birthday messages during my live stream a couple of days ago, and a special thank you to Mick Manley Omaha, Interfere, Enrique Lopez, and Garrett Kim for their donations and gifted memberships. As always, the support is greatly appreciated. And then finally, a quick shout out to Caterpie Queen for once again coming in clutch and lucky trading me this shiny Skrelp, so it's a lot cheaper to power up. I'm not even exaggerating when I say that I probably wouldn't be able to make about half of my videos without her help, so thank you very much for coming in clutch with that shiny Skrelp. And with that being said, let's finally get into the question of the day. What unique theme team that you've never seen done before would you like to see me showcase in the Go Battle League, and which Pokemon should I be using for this theme? Let me know in the comment section down below, and with that being said, let's get into the battles now. Let's go into the first battle, leading Delmise into Talonflames. Of course, not a very good matchup. I'm going to be safe swapping into Dragalge. I do throw one Astonish first before coming in with that Dragalge, and now going to fire off the Aqua Tail. Aqua Tail going to be shielded by the Talonflame. They're still staying in, so probably don't have a great response to Dragalge in the back. They full send the Brave Bird before swapping into a Gastrodon. Now I'm running Focus Blast for coverage, and I'm full sending it. Focus Blast is unfortunately shielded by the opponent. Honestly, that was very unexpected, but the opponent fires off the Body Slam. That does not get the KO, so gonna let the Dragalge go down there. Didn't want to swap back into Delmise. I didn't want to switch lock myself, so instead, now we come in, we're gonna fire off the Power Whip. Power Whip gets the KO there. They're gonna come back in with the Talonflame, and so I swap into my Skrelp, but the opponent gonna have a Serperior in the back, and they make a huge mistake. They do not farm up to the potential Frenzy Plant, and as a result, Skrelp can easily take the Aerial Ace, farm up to the Sludge Bomb. Sludge Bomb gets the KO there. We fire off two more Acids, fire off an Aqua Tail, and from this range, Aqua Tail takes out the Talonflame, and I'm able to take that game. So, GG's up on there into next battle. We're going to see Delmise into a Dragonite. So, of course, not the best matchup for most Grass-type Pokemon, but honestly, it's fairly neutral here because Astonish is going to do quite a lot of fast move pressure. I've also got Wrap to potentially debuff their defense, but the opponent going to safe swap into a Shadow Snorlax, maybe hoping to catch a Shadow Ball, but we hold onto the energy. Of course, we're not running Shadow Ball anyways, and again, we are going to full send the Focus Blast with Dragalge here. The opponent is going to once again shield that up there, and I will say right now, Dragalge had a bit of a horrible time with the Focus Blast. Like, I think I landed maybe 3 or 4 of them, but had a lot of them shielded, and a lot of the time you just actually don't even get there anyway, so not ideal. But anyways, we come in with our Skrelp, and I am going to use my final shield. The opponent fires off a Body Slam. I'm now going to overfarm, but the opponent comes back in with their Dragonite. Now, hoping Aqua Tail will put them into Acid farm down range, and it does exactly that. We get that perfect farm down. They come back in with the Shadow Snorlax and farm me up to back-to-back Aqua Tails. First one gonna be no shielded, and their final Pokemon is going to be a Venusaur. So we're gonna come in with the Delmise, fire off that Wrap there, and Wrap is gonna be no shielded, but they overfarm. They allow me to reach a second Wrap. Wrap number 2 grabs the final shield. They cannot commit to the farm down. They're forced to throw some energy here, and of course Skrelp did leave with a Charge Move loaded. I couldn't remember if I had the Sludge Bomb or not, but it doesn't matter. They're double debuffed in their defense. Aqua Tail gets the KO there, and I'm able to take that game. So, GG's up on there into next battle. We're going to see Delmise once again into Talonflame. So again, going to fire off the Astonish, then swap into Dragalge, and this time met with a Hypno, a Pokemon that I've not seen in quite a long time, and honestly, it's not particularly good for that Dragalge. Of course, my harder hitting move in Focus Blast is going to be resisted, so now I'm just going to spam out some Aqua Tails. The first two do not get shielded, but we reach a third Aqua Tail before the opponent throws a Charge Move, and as well, they don't commit to the farm down, instead using their energy. So at this point, we grab a shield advantage. That is probably the best thing we could have gotten out of that matchup. So at this point, we're going to come back in with Delmise, and they've thrown a Thunder Punch so far. I'm going to no shield, and it is just a second Thunder Punch. So that's good for me. They're going to come back in with the Talonflame. Again, we go for one Astonish. We swap out there, and unfortunately met with a Lantern. So two sort of throwback Pokemon here in Hypno and Lantern. Lantern may be seeing a little bit of a revival this season, but either way, we are going to no shield. The opponent full sends a Thunderbolt but we are saving both our shields for the Delmites. And here, what I'm not going to do is throw a charge move. I realize if I throw here, Talonflame comes in and they can incinerate farm me down. Instead, we're committing to the full Astonish farm down. I'm going to throw this first wrap straight away, assuming the opponent would throw immediately. So we win CMP and we grab the shield, and as well, we drop their defense. So now I can shield up the flame charge, fire off one more Astonish, not take any damage from the incinerate, and wrap, because I've debuffed their defense, gets the KO up against the Talonflame, and I'm able to take that game. So, GG's to upon there into the next battle. You can see Delmites into a Ferret. So, of course, this is not a good matchup. Going to be safe swapping into Dragalge, and we're met with a Claydol. So, not ideal for me at all, but we can fire off the Arquitel. Arquitel going to hit for super effective damage, and it will force the opponent to throw some energy. Now, if they go for Rock Tomb here, we do actually just barely hang on, and I can fire off a second Arquitel once. It's not going to do much damage. What it does do is it puts them into Astonish farm down range. So, of course, I'm waiting out the switch clock, coming in with that Delmise. I'm going to swap straight away. Actually, no, never mind. I'm not going to do that. I realize the opponent's energy is not really going to do much up against Delmise. We do resist the typical charge moves. However, now they've boosted their attack, it's not really ideal for us. I fire off the wrap. They no-shield that. I thought they were going to shield there, which is why I did go for the bait. But we can come in with our Skrelp. We're going to shield the first move here as they do go for a Swift. And, of course, they have boosted up their attack. So at this point, we're going to fire off an Arquitel. Arquitel grabs a shield. I could have thrown on CMP, but I'm assuming Skrelp loses CMP in this matchup. So we're going to shield up the Swift. And the opponent comes in with their final Pokemon, a Talonflame. Now we do have a sliver of hope here. We're going to fire off the Arquitel. Arquitel grabs that final shield. We're already at a second Arquitel. Arquitel number 2 does decent damage, but we can swap, we can catch the charge move onto my Delmise here. The opponent fires off a fly there. We are now 2 away from the Arquitel, and we do not take the incinerate damage. That is absolutely massive for me. It's now a fast move race. But unfortunately, Skrelp just barely not able to deal enough damage with those acids. We go down to the Sucker Punch. They live with 1 HP and a Dream. And unfortunately, I do lose that game. But GG's to that trainer there. Into the next battle, the opponent's going to swap into an Alolan Marowak. So I'm staying in. I'm firing off the wrap here to grab a shield advantage. And we do exactly that. Now, they've actually farmed up quite a lot. I can live a Bone Club, but they full sent a Shadow Ball there, which is fine with me. I can now overfarm quite a lot. We can fire off the Arquitel. Arquitel should be enough damage to get the KO, especially with a debuff to their defense. And they come back in with Azumarill, and Skrelp just completely walls Azumarill here. There is nothing they can throw that hits for anything other than resisted damage, and so, rather smartly, they do actually bank the energy. They're now going to swap into Skarmory. We can fire off the Arquitel here. They are on Air Slash, so I can't really come in with the Delmise where we can deal neutral damage with the fast move pressure. So instead, we come in with Dragalge. We force them to full send a Brave Bird, or of course, not get the KO there. I'm now going to bait with the Arquitel. Arquitel is going to grab that final shield from the opponent, and now we can full send the Focus Blast. Of course, Focus Blast hits for neutral. It gets the KO there. They come back in with a Azumarill. They do get that farm down, but it just does not matter at this point. We come back in with our Skrelp, and we're going to fire off the charge with the opponent recognizing we should live anything anyways, and so they just concede the match. So, GG's up on there into next battle. You can see Greninja in the lead. This is a bit awkward for me, of course. We are a Grass-type Pokemon. However, we are hitting for resisted damage with Astonish. And, of course, they've got Night Slashes, which are incredibly spammy. So, I say swap into Dragalge, and we're met with a Shadow Drifblim. So, not ideal. We grab a shield with that first Arquitel. Of course, this is definitely just going to be another Arquitel, which they can no shield. And, unfortunately, we end up losing CMP here. At this point, I don't know if I should shield because since I'm debuffed, I don't know if an Arquitel would actually get the KO there, and they'd probably reach another charge move anyway. So at this point, we come back in with the Delmise. We're going to shield the Icy Wind here, commit to the Astonish farm down, and then swap immediately into my Skrelp if they come back in with Greninja, and they do exactly that. So the opponent fires off the Night Slash there, and we are now going to see the opponent banks another Night Slash before swapping into Clodsire. Now, this is where, unfortunately, these stat product difference is just going to be a little bit too much for the Skrelp. You're going to see 3 Arquitels will be required to get the KO up against this Clodsire. And so at this point, I'm going to shield this up here. They might end up baiting me. The opponent does end up baiting with the Stone Edge. So at this point, I'm going to swap, catch the next charge move onto Delmise. We should be able to tank this here as they fire off the Stone Edge. They come back in with Greninja, but we do not reach a charge move. I actually don't know who wins CMP in this matchup. Delmise is fairly attack weighted, of course. We all know Greninja is a very glassy Pokemon. But at this point, it's going to be game over. They can just safely shield that up there, fire off another Night Slash. And from this range, Night Slash takes out the Skrelp. And unfortunately, I do lose that game. But GG to opponent there into next battle. You can see a Shadow Kanto Marowak in the lead. So, of course, this is fine with me. The opponent is going to stay in initially. They're going to swap after banking a Bone Club, and they swap into a Skuntank. So, at this point, we fire off the Wrap. Wrap going to hit for neutral damage. It drops their defense. That guarantees an Aqua Tail will get the KO here. And I'm actually going to no-shield. The opponent goes for a Flamethrower there. So I don't know what their other charge move is. Maybe Trailblaze or Sludge Bomb. Either way, they're both resisted. However, Flamethrower, probably the worst move they could have thrown there, just because it doesn't boost up their attack, or it's non-stab. But either way, they come in with a Miltank with full send in the focus bars. And this time, it is no-shielded. They had 2 shields there, and they let it go through. And that's going to be game over. At this point, I don't care if they bait me or not. I'm just shielding up everything. I'm going to fire off the Wrap. Wrap, of course, probably doesn't quite get the KO from this range, but it does drop the defense. Actually, yeah, probably would have taken them out anyways. But either way, this is going to allow these Astonishes to do even more damage. We can commit to that full fast move farm down, and I'm able to take that game. So, GG's to opponent there into the next battle. We're going to see Dhelmise into a Sableye. So, of course, not really ideal, and a little bit of a core breaker to the team, as, of course, Acid is going to be resisted by the Sableye there. But either way, they come in with a Diggersby, and we full send the Focus Blast, and back-to-back matches, we're able to connect with the Focus Blast. Diggersby actually such a tank that they live that, but we get the perfect Acid farm down there. The opponent comes back in with the Sableye. They've already seen Focus Blast. They're probably just going to panic and shield whatever we throw, and they do exactly that. However, unfortunately, they throw on CMP here, winning CMP and getting the KO with the foul play. I'm going to come in with my Skrelp here, and the opponent once again going to throw on CMP. Very good timing there as we fire off the Aqua Tail, and they go for a Power Gem this time around, which is a bit of a strange decision. It probably does do slightly more damage than the foul play. But anyways, we swap back into Dhelmise, and I'm going to be forced to use my shield here. The opponent is going to be on Brutal Swing, so they will reach another Brutal Swing, I believe, in just one more Fairy Wind. But Wrap puts them into one fast move farm down range, so we get the farm down there. But then I make a huge mistake, and I don't know why I threw the Wrap here. Wrap is double resisted, and what it does do is it means the opponent does not have to throw a charge move anymore. Instead, they can now commit to the full farm down, coming out with the foul play loaded. And of course, from that range, foul play takes out my Skrelp, and unfortunately I do lose that game. But GG's up on there into next battle. We're going to see Credilli in the lead. So this is a fairly neutral matchup here. Of course, they will outpace me to the first charge move, and they're going to go for a Rock Tomb, debuffing my attack. However, I'm going to stay in this matchup here, throw at the last possible second, throwing on CMP, winning CMP with the Dhelmise, and Power Whip actually grabs a shield. So this one, I'm going to match shields here, but I'm very low. I don't want to be sniped by a different Pokemon, so I'm actually going to swap out myself into Dragalge, and we're going to fire off an Aqua Tail on the CMP tie, and it just barely gets the KO. Now they come in with Azumarill, and this is where Focus Blast obviously does not help me out in the slightest. Of course, Sludge Bomb will be way better. Outrage will be double resisted, so it is slightly better than Outrage, but either way, we are going to full send the Focus Blast there. It does decent damage considering it's non-stab and it is resisted, but I'm going to bank an Aqua Tail, come in with my Skrelp. Now I can resist everything they throw here as they go for an Ice Beam. Their final Pokemon is going to be a Primeape, so I figured I might as well just go straight for the Sludge Bomb here. Sludge Bomb does big damage. It forces them to throw straight away, and I definitely do not need to shield here. We're actually going to see a simultaneous KO as the opponent committing to that fast move farm down, and as a result, I still had 2 Pokemon in the back, and so I'm able to take that game. So, GG's up on there into next battle. See Shadow Annihilate in the lead. They're going to say swap into a Diggersby, and I'm going straight for the Power Whip here. Of course, Wrap not going to do much damage, but Power Whip absolutely chunks that Diggersby, and I can have a Fire Punch here, so I'm going to no-shield this, swap into Dragalge, and I'm going to overfarm in this matchup. I'm going to fire off the Aqua Tail on the CMP type with a potential Scorching Sands, and we actually grab a shield. So at this point, I'm definitely just going to match shields here. I can easily outpace them to the next charge move, but the opponent is going to swap straight away back into their Annihilate. So of course, we're going to fire off the Aqua Tail there, as of course Focus Blast is going to be double resisted. At this point, the opponent, if they're on Ice Punch, it might get the KO, but it's just a Rage Fist. I swap back into Dhelmise, I get the snipe there, and let's see what the opponent wants to do. They come back in with the Diggersby, so I'm going to go for that Wrap here, but I'm actually going to undercharge this because I've seen this line quite a few times, and it is very typically a Drapion in the back. So I'm going to take a slight energy advantage, except it is not a Drapion, and this time it's going to be a Dusclops, and that is definitely a lot worse for me just because they can hit for neutral damage with the fast moves, whereas Drapion, we would resist the poison stings here. But either way, we're going to go and shield the first Shadow Punch. They did actually farm up quite a lot, so I respected the damage from a potential Poltergeist. We fire off the Aqua Tail there, and I'm going to throw another Aqua Tail, winning CMP with the Skrelp here. So Skrelp is going to grab the final shield from the opponent. That actually was not a CMP tie there, so I don't know if they missed a fast move, or potentially we just did not see it go through. But either way, I think the opponent has now reached back-to-back charge moves. So the first one gets us fairly low, and yes, they did have back-to-back charge moves there. And I actually think from this range, Aqua Tail from Skrelp probably does not quite get the KO anyways, so either way it doesn't really matter. But GG's to that trainer there. Into the next battle, we're going to see a Grumpig in the lead. So of course, great lead matchup for me. Even these side waves are chunking a fair bit. However, we're just going to shield once and then commit to a full Astonish farm down. Now, the fact they stay in here means they might be weak to us in the back, so we're going to swap, bank the energy, come in with Dragalge, and I'm still able to outpace them to the Aqua Tail before they can reach a potential Rock Tomb. So at this point, we can tank a Rock Tomb fairly comfortably, so I will no-shield this. The opponent does go for the Rock Tomb, and at this point, we can now outpace them to a second Aqua Tail with debuffed, so this might not get the KO here, but it does grab a shield from the opponent. They do have a farm by a single Incinerate, but that's okay with me. I'm going to let the Dragalge go down there, come in with my Skrelp, and we will throw on CMP, so I'm not going to throw straight away. I don't know who wins CMP in this matchup. I'll be honest, I'm not particularly used to using Skrelp up against Macargo, but either way, they're going to come in with their final Pokemon, which is going to be a Jumpluff. We go for Sludge Bomb. Sludge Bomb does decent damage. I'm now going to swap back into Delmites, and we've actually got back-to-back charge moves here. First one doesn't do that much damage, so I'm actually going to undercharge the second wrap to put them into farm down range for my Skrelp. Now the opponent is going to take a leaf out of our book there as... Is that a page out of our book? Is that the right thing? I don't know what I'm talking about. But either way, they undercharge as well to get a slight energy advantage with the Macargo. But it doesn't matter as we had the Aqua Tail already loaded. They needed one more Incinerate. And as a result, Aqua Tail gets the KO there. And I'm able to take that game. What is the expression with the leaf there? Anyways, into the next battle. GG's to that trainer, by the way. We swap into Dragalge and unfortunately met with Azumarill, which is... basically the only Pokemon that Dragalge is not going to have the best time against on this team, just because obviously we've got Power Whip on our Delmize, we've got Sludge Bomb on our Skrelp. We have to go for resisted charge moves here, but hopefully I've put them into range where Aqua Tail will get the KO. Aqua Tail is just barely not going to get the KO there. Dragalge should live on Ice Beam, so I will still maintain switch advantage. However, of course, I've put myself into range where Obstagoon can come in and then go for a counter farm down, but they do shield respect to the damage from a Focus Blast, which were, of course, nowhere near. But either way, I'm happy to take that shield advantage. We're going to come in with the Skrelp, and the opponent goes for an Obstruct, which means, of course, not doing much damage there, but they drop my defense, they boost their defense, and then they shield the Sludge Bomb as well. So that's really not ideal for me. The opponent going to fire off another Obstruct there, so once again boosting up the defense, meaning when we do reach the Sludge Bomb, it's just going to be nowhere near enough damage to get the KO. So we're going to swap into Delmize. And of course, we're hitting for triple resisted Astonish damage. They've already triple boosted their defense. So of course, I'm going to have to fire the charge move. I don't even know if a wrap will get the KO at this point. So he full send this Power Whip. Power Whip gets the KO there. They come in with an Alola Marowak. And unfortunately, they do get the full Fire Spin farm down. But if Skrelp is 2 acids away from the Aqua Tail, I should still have this game in the bag. And we were exactly that. So we can fire off the Aqua Tail straight away. Aqua Tail gets the KO there. And I'm able to take that game. So, GG top end there, and also, by the way, if you're wondering what the theme is, these are all Pokemon related to seaweed. So, Delmize is actually a seaweed that's sort of haunted and holding together an anchor and a wheel there. And then we've got Dragalge and Skrelp, which are not actually seaweed, but they are sea dragons that are sort of disguised as seaweed. Which I thought was really cool, and either way, it's a pretty unique theme, so let me know if you did guess that correctly in the comments. Either way, we're going to see Lapras here. Unfortunately, we did full send the Focus Blast, but it got shielded anyways, and to be honest, like, at that point, they'd probably shield an Outrage or even a Sludge Bomb, so maybe should have baited, but either way, we're going to come back in with Delmize. I'm not confident, since they've now baited, that I could get the full farm down there, but maybe I should have just committed to it anyways. Their final Pokemon is going to be a Marowak, so we go for the Arcutel. We grab the shield there from the opponent. We do reach a second Arcutel, and this will be enough damage to get the KO, and it will put them, hopefully, into range where we can get the KO with our Delmise. However, I need so much energy to beat the Jumpluff in the lead, and I'm just not going to get that. I'm forced to throw here just because the next Bone Club will get me very low. Wrap does get the KO there, but there's just no point in throwing here. I'm definitely not going to be able to take out the Jumpluff. The opponent is going to probably full send the Acrobatics. It easily takes out the Delmise, and unfortunately, I do lose that game. But GG's to opponent there. Into next battle, you're going to see a Blastoise in the lead. So a fairly positive matchup for me here. The opponent is going to swap out into a Clodsire. Now I'm going to go for a Wrap here because I need a little bit more damage here to be dealt with the fast moves. I need to put them into range where a single Astonish will get the KO. Sorry, a single Aquatail there. We swap, we catch an Earthquake, which is super unexpected. Why are they going for an Earthquake up against my Delmise? That definitely caught me off guard there. I don't know if they were predicting a catch or if they just accidentally threw the wrong move there, but either way, that really does not help me out there. We do have a shield advantage. However, that Earthquake put me into range where they could just shield once and fully farm me down. So we're going to come in with a Skrelp. They full send the Earthquake once again, and at this point, I'm now going to continue to overfarm. This could be another Earthquake, so I'm just going to shield this, and they do full send it once again. So the opponent comes in with their Blastoise. They are going to go for that Sludge Bomb there, and the opponent is going to fire off a Charge Move of their own. But the opponent goes for a Hydro Cannon there, so probably not on Skull Bash. They're probably just on Hydro Cannon and Ice Beam. They fire off a second Hydro Cannon. We put them into range where we can Astonish, farm them all the way down. And let's see what the opponent has in the back. They're going to have a Credilli. So here, I'm going to go for a bait with the Wrap. Wrap, of course, is resisted damage, but we grab the shield there, and we drop the defense. Of course, Wrap is going to guarantee to drop the defense. So Power Whip does huge damage there. And at this point, this should be game over. The opponent fires off the Rock Tomb. We can come in with a Skrelp, get that full farm down, coming out with the Arcutel loaded, and Clodsire should be in range where Arcutel gets the KO there, and I'm able to take that game. So, GG's up on there. Into next battle, going to see Delmise into a Shadow Scizor. So this is definitely where we want to see it with this team because we've got two Pokemon that have Acid, a double resisted fast move. We're going to shield this as they fire off the Night Slash. They then swap into Jellicent, and this is definitely a mistake. They're definitely going to shield. So I should have just baited with a Wrap, and that would mean that we can come in with Dragalge. And actually, we might have a little bit more pressure than we do now, where, of course, everything I throw is resisted. And we're just not doing much damage whatsoever. I'm going to fire off an Arcutel here. Arcutel, of course, not going to do much damage. If we debuff that defense, maybe I would at least force the opponent to throw. But now they can actually just commit to a full Hex farm down and come out with 100 energy. So, of course, definitely not ideal for me. But we fire off another Arcutel. We've actually put them into range where we can snipe them with the Delmise. Of course, I'm going to shield this up here as Astonish will be taking them out. But Shadow Scizor comes back in and they get the farm down just before I reach a second Charge Reef. But if I baited with the Wrap earlier, of course, I would have reached a Charge Reef there as well. So not ideal for me, but we're going to see a Rage Fist coming in from that Primate. We've already seen Sludge Bomb does quite a lot of damage in this matchup, so I'm full sending it. It gets the shield, but the opponent does not throw straight away, and as a result, we're definitely in range here with a Skrelp up against a boosted Primate. Rage Fist takes us out there, and unfortunately, I do lose that game. But GG's up on there. Into the next battle, we're going to see a Dusclops in the lead. So we're going to stay in this matchup, at least initially here, and the opponent is going to fire off a Shadow Punch straight away. So this one, we're probably going to learn from our mistakes, and we're going to go for a bait with the Wrap here, expecting to grab a shield from the opponent, and we do grab the shield this time around, so that's great for me. Now I can shield this up here, and I should be able to commit to a full Astonish farm down. So the opponent's going to swap into Jumpluff. I'm going to go for the Wrap here, just because Skrelp, whilst we can hit for super effective damage, it's not going to do that much damage in this matchup before we debuff their defense. And actually, the opponent ends up shielding. They full send the Acrobatics. We can tank that reasonably comfortably and fire off the Sludge Bomb. Sludge Bomb is going to get the KO thanks to the debuff to their defense. And let's see what they want to do here. The opponent comes in with their final Pokemon, a Shadow Annihilate, but that's fine with me. We can fire off this Arcutel straight away. All shields are down. It doesn't do much damage, but we can come in with Dragalge, and even if they have Ice Punch here, I should be able to tank this. They will not be able to counter farm me down. They try to swap, catch the Arcutel, which is a very smart play. However, we don't fall for it. Arcutel gets the KO up against the Dusclops, and one more Acid, and we've already reached another Arcutel. Arcutel gets the KO there. and I'm able to take that game. So, GG stuff on there into the next battle. We're going to see Delmites into Whiscash, so a great lead matchup for me. Of course, we're quite slow to the charge moves, but that's okay. They're going to say swap into Dugong, however, so what I'm going to do here is going to throw the Wrap once again, expecting to grab a shield, especially since they can debuff my attack, and now I'm also going to call a bait with my Skrelp. The opponent is going to go for that bait with the Icy Wind, which is absolutely fine with me. I'm now going to fire off the Sludge Bomb. I've debuffed their defense, but they debuff my attack, so this Sludge Bomb isn't going to do enough damage to get the KO there. The opponent might go for the draw on here, but nope, they double bait me. They go for another Icy Wind. So at this point, I'm also going to bait. It's not really a bait, as I realize. Even if this does not get the KO, it will put them into farm down range, and farm down is exactly what we're going to go for there. But I realize now Skrelp is just kind of useless up against this Whiscash, and I do not want to allow them to farm me down, but in swapping into my Delmites here, I'm only able to reach a Wrap, and if they call this bait here, that is going to be huge for the opponent. At this point, of course, Wrap is double resisted. It doesn't do much damage, and the fast move damage doesn't really matter for me anyways. It's going to be the Aqua Tail that I need to get the KO here, so I think this game is probably already over unless I'm able to make a really savage catch here and land a Focus Blast up against the Whiscash. I just can't see me winning this game, but we come back in with a Skrelp. I will outpace them. I honestly need to grab the shield here, but the opponent does correctly just no shield that. They can get the full Mud Shot farm down, and that's certainly going to be game over. Dragalge comes in, we're not at the Focus Blast. Mud Bomb gets KO there, and unfortunately I do lose that game. But GG stuff on there into the final battle of this video, once again leading into a Grumpig. So once again, gonna stay in here, and the opponent is choosing not to swap out. They will just barely outpace me to that Shadow Ball. So once again, gonna shield out the Shadow Ball. They swap into Diggersby, and now we're full sending a Power Whip. Power Whip is going to do big damage there. I'm then able to swap and catch the Fire Punch onto Dragalge, so everything is going well for me so far. I'm now going to overfarm here. I'm going to fire off the Aqua Tail on the CMP tie with the potential Scorching Sands here, and Aqua Tail is going to grab a shield from the opponent. At this point, I'm also going to match shields here. The opponent swaps back into Grumpig, so I can now overfarm, fire off the Aqua Tail here, and the opponent will need to shield this, otherwise it will get the KO. So at this point, Dynamic Punch does not get the KO, so I'm actually going to swap out there, bank a little bit of energy on the Dragalge, come back in with the Delmites, and the opponent is going to come back in with their Diggersby. So we can go for 3 Astonishes, fire off the Wrap here from this range, of course, this will get the KO. And their final Pokemon is going to be Azumarill, and that is absolutely game over. There's nothing they can do here. We're going to fire off the Power Whip. I tried to throw it on the CMP tie with an Ice Beam. It really does not matter. We put them into range where Skrelp can tank anything. We can, of course, go for the Acid Farm down. The opponent is going to fire off a last second charge move. Play Rough just tickles the Skrelp, and I'm able to take that game. So that's going to be it for today's video. If you did enjoy it, please make sure you leave a like, leave a comment letting me know, and as well, don't forget to respond to the question of the day if you haven't done so already. And if you want to see more content like this in the future, make sure you hit that subscribe button and turn on post notifications. That way you'll be notified whenever I upload a new video. Now, if you want to take your support to the next level, you can become a channel member with perks including early access to new videos, shoutouts at the end of each video, custom loyalty badges, and custom emojis to use in the comments of every video. I want to say a massive thank you to everyone that has become a channel member already. Your support is greatly appreciated. And with that being said, thank you so much for watching today's video, and I hope you have a great rest of your day.